Hello, everybody. This is Josh, also known as Yashu, and you're tuning into episode 25 of the TLOY Talks podcast. Happy New Year to everyone that's tuning in. We're back, more refreshed, and we're at the 25th, so it's a good milestone right there too. So today on the podcast, we have a very special guest, a well-renowned photographer within the Toronto GTA music scene who's worked with the likes of Animation and 808 Mazze, has shot a variety of shows including Redveil, Denzel Curry, Kenny Mason, NASCAR Aloe, and much more, and has done like a lot of creative work behind the scenes as well too. Ladies and gentlemen, we have Dawson.ISO. How are you doing today, man?
Good. That was the best introduction I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah, man. I think just like even with our backstory, like us like linking up for the 808 Mazze thing, because I remembered you reach out to me for the 808 Mazze interview. We got it done, but like I think you didn't like pull up for like the thing too, because I know that you wanted to pull up to do the photographs.
Yeah.
But like time worked well, and we linked up at the video shoot back in like 2021 and all that, and that was like a good vibe too. Even though like the video is like not gonna drop it anytime soon and all that, but I think we discussed that like earlier on. But no, it was a crazy experience too. And then seeing your growth and like with everything else too, it's like crazy to see with what you're doing right now. And we're gonna like dive into that for a bit too. But for the people who don't know you, tell us more about yourself.
Okay. Like you said, I'm a photographer from Toronto. I really started out just by playing with a camera in the streets. That's really all it was. And then one day I just asked a couple of my homies if they wanted to be in some shots, and then it just grew into this crazy nonstop, not like just movement for me. And so it's taken over my whole life now, and this is what I do. It's what I study. It's everything.
Yeah, no, most definitely, man. And would you say that your first place of birth was in Toronto, or were you born at like another area? And what was it like for you growing up?
Born in Newmarket originally. Lived there for most of my life, bouncing in and out of Toronto, kind of. Honestly, the Newmarket art scene doesn't really exist, in my opinion, especially for people of our age. I feel like the younger generation is really missing out on something when it comes to there, which kind of is what dragged me to the city so much, is that the community here is so much more advanced than everywhere else that it just felt like somewhere that I belonged. So I was always in Toronto. I'd catch every train I could, kind of thing, find a way.
Yeah, definitely. And like from birth until like adulthood, would you say like your childhood was like very great? And what were you like as a kid, like around those times?
I was actually raised by a single mom. She was very young when she had me, so there was some ups and downs for sure, but it was honestly a blessing, in my opinion. There's a lot of life lessons that I learned because of it, and something that I value a lot.
Yeah.
In terms of me as a kid, always very quiet, isolated, like keep to myself kind of person. And I think that's kind of stuck with me too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Like I know, like with kids, like usually when they're isolated, they're getting into like other stuff and all that, like with TV, with video games, with other stuff like that. Were you like into some of that type of stuff and all that, or?
video games, yeah. Another big inspiration has always been music. Music just always was something that I was super interested in too. I remember like when I was really young, I'd be sitting in the back of the car and my mom would play j.cole's Sideline Story.
Oh, true.
I would be singing that shit like nobody.
True. No, almost definitely. Was your mom like a big hip hop fan and all that?
Not really, no. Honestly, there was a couple albums that we had. We had a DVD player, and I remember we'd play like the same 4 albums again and again. It was Sideline Story by j.cole. There was an Eminem album in there, Adele, and somebody else. I can't remember, but yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, your mom actually has like very good taste and all that, especially like for j.cole. Like because I know like at that age range, she might be like very young to even like know like j.cole and all that. But, like most parents like around certain age ranges, like they're not really into that type of stuff. Like they're more into like the 80s and 70s types of
Yeah.
music and all that. With Cher, like not Cher and like like Madonna, all that type of stuff too. Prince, like they're into that type of wave. But your mom being into like j.cole and Eminem at that time too, like it's very interesting to hear and all that.
Yeah, honestly, when I tell people that, normally they don't believe me. They're like, "There's no way." But it was dope. She's a big inspiration for me. She taught me a lot of life lessons, like I said. So I've
most
just taken a lot from her. But yeah.
True. So Newmarket, was it very big for the art scene back then, or was it just like as a community at the time?
No, there's zero. There's nothing there, honestly.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, I feel like that town is very grow up in a friendly kind of environment kind of thing. There's not really a lot of bad spots or anything like that, but it's pretty dry. I'll be honest with you.
Nah, I know what you mean because I know with Newmarket, like they'll have like some rappers and other stuff and all that, but or like shows, but it's like nothing really going on. Like I know like you'd have to get like your first introduction to arts like in the high school and all that, or like you have to go to Toronto, you go to Queen West, you see some art and all that, and then like that kind of changes you and all that.
Yeah, honestly, growing up there, I think when we were like 15, 16, 17, it felt like it was me and animation that were making the kind of community that we
Oh,
wanted
true,
in that
true.
town. So,
Yeah.
yeah, we kind of had to make it for ourselves. There was never anything for us to grab onto. So,
True, true. So, like, what was like your first introduction to photography and content creating, and what made you decide on like wanting it? Like, actually, like the question that I was about to say was, what was like the first introduction to photography and content creating for a bit?
honestly, I've always just kind of been around cameras. I remember we used to have those like Kodak cameras, the disposable ones where you flip things. Um, it's always been there for me, and I've always kind of had it by me. But my real like first introduction into becoming a photographer was with another photographer whose name was I Am Justified on
Oh, true.
Instagram. His real name is Benjamin Saba. Um, I worked in the same place as him at the same time, and he was doing pretty well for himself, and he was shooting Russell and stuff like that at the time. And I just thought it was the coolest thing ever. So I really spent the time. I put the money forward, and I was like, "That's what I'm gonna do."
Yeah. Nah, most definitely. Because I know with me, like I also do like photography and videography as well too. And like I remember doing it in like 2018, getting it as like a grad gift, with the camera and just going to all these other places, like shooting at these events too. And it's very interesting to see like all these like different forms of like photography and all that, and like how people like get started. Like I remembered like even like a previous situation a while back where 2012, I did like some film photography for a bit too, in this community based program where you learn like film photography. You do like the photos and all that, and it's like a crazy thing too because you're learning it at a very young age, and then like sometimes too you kind of stop for a bit, but like that thrill is like still there like always, and then like once you get it like at a later age, like that hits like in that area like right there and all that.
Yeah, honestly, there was a big connection for me between what I did as a kid to what I do now. Um, it's kind of always been there in the back of my head, and
Yeah.
so bringing it forward and really like dedicating a piece of my life to it was an easy decision. Like really.
True, true. And getting into it like within the creative sense, how was that process like? Was it like strictly through like high school and all that? Like I don't know if they have a good like arts program like in the school they used to go to, or would you say like it would be like from people like around you, like within like your circle?
Honestly, we did have an arts program at my high school. We had a photography course, and I got a 66 in it.
Huh. Oh wow.
Yeah, I did not do well. I think because of that, it might have been a little bit harder to
Yeah.
kind of dedicate yourself to it. Um, but the people around me, like animation and people like that,
Yeah.
really helped me hone in and like make those choices of how much time are you going to dedicate to this, how much money are
Uh,
you going to dedicate to this, where is this going to take me? So
was like the standard for the photography like class like very like rigid and all that? Like I know like with some photography courses, they'll tell you you have to compose the photo like this, you
yeah.
have to kind of do it like that, you have to kind of do the editing style like that, you have to get like your subject in
Yeah.
like that. Were they like on your ass about that, or was it like something like totally different?
No, they wanted you to shoot like rule of thirds kind of thing,
Oh,
right?
true.
It had to be by their book. And personally, I feel like my photography style is so much different than everybody else's, like compared to just what everyone's doing. And so I never really was like, I didn't want to do rule of thirds, I didn't want to line things up
Yeah.
properly. And so they were against that. And I kind of ignored them. I was like, I don't really
Yeah.
care.
Yeah, because I know with photography too, but they have like a certain like set system, like micro, like three fourths and all that, with the full frame, the APS-C and all that. So like usually they'll go by like certain standards of how you have to shoot and all that. So like if you're not shooting it within like the right like style, then like that's why like they're kind of more against you. Like whereas like with regular photography, like we have like free form photography, so shooting whatever you want. Like would you say like with free form photography, like it's more like a better way for you? Like it's something that you prefer?
Absolutely. Yeah. My favorite photography is just when I'm by myself in the streets of Toronto.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's when I'm the most creative, when I get the
Yeah.
most ideas. And so just being able to walk around with the camera and do what I want to do compared to, do what somebody else is telling me to do is
Yeah.
where I kind of thrive.
And like in that sense too, do you feel like people would have to go to school to do well like in photography, or Like, would you say like, like fuck the rules, like, hey, we're gonna do it like this way and all that in that sense?
I'm actually in school right now. I'm studying it at college. It's my
True.
program, but my professor says something really that I relate to is you have to learn the rules before you can break them. So I think there's a place where everybody has to start, and I think that's a good spot. But if you want to be an amazing photographer, I feel like you really have to bend things to your reality.
All right. Most definitely. And what made you decide on wanting to take it to like the next level in that sense?
Honestly, I think it was just kind of always there. Like I kind of teetered on it for a little bit. I remember when I was 16, 17, I couldn't really decide if I wanted to launch myself into this crazy career. I was kind of thinking about studying architecture instead, and I just didn't want to be sitting at a desk for the rest of my life. And I was like, I could do this and I'm good at it.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of made the jump.
Yeah, no, most definitely. Were there like other like initial like goals as well too, like aside from the architecture type stuff, or were you like leaning into something else, like within that realm? Like I know with other people, like they'll do like the whole like doctor, nurse, lawyer, engineer type thing. Like,
No, I've never really been one to follow like tradition. I feel like that. So photography was, like I said, it was always a thought. And so after I'd given up on architecture and I realized that it wasn't for me, I just kind of like sat down and decided like I need to decide what I want to do with my life.
yeah,
And I really just landed on that. And there wasn't really any other option. It was
yeah,
kind of like I do this and it works or it doesn't.
yeah, most definitely. Who would you consider like your main inspirations in terms of your creative journey in that sense?
Honestly, I get a lot of inspiration from music. I feel like that's always where I've drawn it from personally. And I think people like j.cole, JID, Saba, Lute, those guys have always just been like the people that I wanted to work with the most. So I would listen to their music and I'd take things from it. And that's how I kind of make like images and stuff like that in my head. So it just helps me find direction.
Almost definitely. So you wouldn't like consider like any other like photographers as like inspirations, or would you say like it's more so on the creative identity and idea of the style, like instead of like the actual person in that sense?
I think, yeah, I get a lot more from just the art form itself. But obviously, like over the years, I've picked up photographers who I
Yeah.
really like and who inspire me. I can't even think of any right now.
I mean, Vulandis, like I think he's pretty good, like within his own way, like the way he does like a lot of photography and all that. Like his style, it's like very amazing too. Greg Noir, who's like well known like in the concert photography scene, like with the all like black photos of some of these artists and like some of like the high res photos, like it's very good too. There's this guy by like the name of like Drew York and all that. Like he used to be a photographer and like he used to cover like a lot of like the dope artists like within the Toronto music scene, like and now he's managing like well-known artists too. And then I think there was like some other guys as well too. Kashan Mystery, who actually does like photos for the Toronto Raptors and like the MLB and Yahoo. He has like a lot of like good photos too from like a lot of like Toronto artists, and it's kind of like inspiring to see him at like a level like of where he is now. And then there's this kid by the name of like Steven, I think Van, like Steve Van, who also teaches people like on how to do photography, the styling of photography, music videos, and like I even met him at like some shows, and it was like pretty lit to like meet him for a bit.
I think for me, the biggest push was Dragon Anditch, the 97. He just has work ethic like nobody else. That dude does so much. And
Yeah,
he also puts out for the community. So,
yeah,
yeah.
most definitely, man. So what was like your first camera and lens that you used to start with your photography career?
I had a Rebel T5
Rebel T5.
Canon, always Canon, never anything else, unfortunately.
True.
And I think the first lens I bought that wasn't the kit lens was an 85 millimeter.
True.
Yeah.
I know with me, like, I had the kit for a bit, and then I got like a 55 to 250 for my first lens. Even with EOS Rebel T6. But then when I got into the whole like videography realm, I got like the Panasonic like Lumix G7, which I only do it for videos and like for interviews, like outside of the whole podcast stuff. So it's like very like it's interesting too for a bit. 4K. I only have the kit lenses for a bit, but I do want to upgrade. But it's very interesting with what you're going to use and all that, because like with some lenses, you might not be able to use them at like certain events, but you learn like over time, like in that sense, on how to get the best photo, like how to get the best angle and everything like that.
A lot of people say that is you have to have like a specific lens for a specific moment. I don't believe it at all. I've been shooting with a 16 to 35 and only a 16 to 35 for at least 3 years now.
Yeah.
I've mastered that lens. That lens is my child. I didn't have any other options, right? So shooting with that, I just found a way to make it work.
Yeah, most definitely. Would you like ever go like red ring and all that, like with your lenses? Like, like what I mean, right?
The 16 to 35 is,
Yeah,
yeah. So yeah.
most definitely, man. So what was like the first photography piece or project that you worked on, and what was that experience like, and what was like the impact like once it was completed, and when people started like noticing?
The first project was I worked on Animation's mixtape and his promo with Cardinal. They dropped a mixtape together called, they have a group called Dirt Gang, which is
Not
the
true.
dumbest name in the world. But I did the promo for it and it was really simple. It was just like a couple portraits and like a few spots
Yeah,
and a couple of like tying pieces. Um, I hadn't really sat down and done a project like front to back like that before. And so seeing it all finalized and like putting it out piece by piece and seeing how people reacted to it was really cool. And just being able to contribute to something like that and be a part of something like that was special. And thankfully, I still do it today.
and like, did people like ever like tap in for a bit? Like, hey, like I like the cover art. Like, hey, like did this? Do 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 do.
Yeah, like slowly over time, a lot of Animation's homies are now mine, but they didn't really know me back then. And so I kind of got introduced into his circle and his
Yeah.
space because of it. And they all to this day just give me like such praise for the work that we do together. And it's amazing.
Oh, true. Most definitely. Because I know with animation, I think one of his biggest singles was like Change for a bit too. I don't know if anyone did the. Yeah, nah, no worries, no worries. I don't know if you like did the cover art for the Change song as well, or if that's.
No, that was hand drawn by one of our
Oh,
homies.
true.
Super cool though. I love
Yeah,
that cover.
yeah. Because I know like with Change, and we talked about it, and he said like a lot of like people like reached out with labels. It was on like a playlist for like Topsify, like Canada and all that. So like that was like a crazy like moment right there.
I think right now it's sitting on 400,000 on Spotify. Yeah.
Most definitely, man. Nah, it's crazy. I think with him, like he knew he had to make it for a bit, and like he's getting the blessings that he's needed and all that he knows. So
Yeah, right now we're working on an album. I'm not gonna say the name of it,
yeah,
but we've been working on it for about 2 years, I want to say. And
yeah,
I'll be completely honest with you, I sit down and listen to these songs and I cry to them. Like they're just the most beautiful things. And so seeing him evolve
yeah.
it's a pleasure.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, we'll get more into animation on that, but getting back onto the whole like photography realm, what made you like fall in love with like photography, like in general, like in that sense?
Street photography,
True.
100%. Like I said, I've always been isolated, quiet, just like to myself kind of thing. And so being able to walk around the city with a camera and just find locations that nobody else has and just make art out of it, it was amazing.
Yeah.
I still love it to this day. I've done it hundreds of thousands of times, taken hundreds of thousands of photos, and it hasn't gotten old yet. So
True.
yeah,
Nah,
it's
most
pretty
definitely.
dope.
Was it like a main inspiration for for your style right now? Because like when I look at your photos, it's kind of like the whole like you see them like within a gaze, like in a lower stance and all that. You see like the full body frame and all that. You see like the person like around. You see like the unique colors, like more of the darks, more of the shadows. Like, was it like something that inspired your style for a bit, or were there like other styles like for a bit?
No, honestly, it's always been street photography for me. Yeah, you talk about like the colors and stuff like that. I try to make the city like look like Gotham. I feel
Yeah,
like my photos kind of represent like a separate reality
yeah,
almost.
yeah.
And so being able to like paint your own world and emotions into like this like environment is so much power, but it's like amazing,
Yeah,
right?
most definitely. Because like I saw like this one TikTok that you had to like I recently just followed you, and you were taking like like photos like within like 1/8 seconds and all that of like I think the old city hall, and like it
Yeah.
was just like one like at 1 second, and then like it's going like all around and all.
Hyperlapse. Yeah.
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 So it was like kind of interesting on like how you like did that editing piece and all that. And I don't know if it's like you mainly did it on Premiere Pro, or like what was like the style?
I can't do Premiere to save my life. I don't understand it at all.
Yeah.
I am thankfully very good at Photoshop.
True.
So I've been abusing the timeline feature in there.
True. Photoshop or Lightroom?
They're both good for different things.
Yeah.
Lightroom, when it comes to actually,
Like,
deciding the lighting and stuff like
yeah.
that.
And like
But
working on the specific photo, but like Photoshop, if you want to make it into like a unique like world and all that to kind of make it like a unique style and all that. So
Yeah,
yeah,
especially when it comes to concert photography, I feel like sometimes just the artist can be a bit bland, and I feel with concert photography, you're really relying on that person to make your image. So Photoshop kind of gives you that
yeah,
extra little power to make it into something else.
yeah.
So
Most definitely, man. For other people that might want to know like your style, like I don't know if you want to be descriptive of like the style, for people that aren't like looking at the phone or not checking it out for a bit.
honestly, it's hard to describe. It's very different. I feel it took me a long time to kind of craft my style and find what I liked the best. Like I said, everything's shot with a wide angle lens, and I just try and find perspectives that other people don't. And in my head, it's just how I view the world. It's the things that I see daily, kind of thing. But yeah, that's
Yeah.
honestly it.
Yeah, most definitely. I think like this is like not the I wasn't gonna say like the end of the hour. I feel like this is gonna be like the tip of the iceberg for a bit too, like with this question. So, you were known as Bennett back then, and I don't know if people still want to call you Bennett or like you only want to be called like Dawson from now on. But
Mazze is the only person that calls me Bennett still, I think. The transition was kind of just from like how I felt personally. Bennett's my mother's maiden name,
uh,
and it's kind of where I started. And I felt like there's been a long road since then. It's been like 6 years. So um, it was kind of just like looking back, I felt like I evolved as like an artist and a creator, and I was like trying to rebrand and everything. So
and with Dawson, like how did you get the name as well?
Dawson.ISO was I tried a couple of them. I kind of wanted to relate it to photography because I'm still growing. I'm still trying to make a name for myself and stuff like that. But foremost, I wanted something that was original that not everyone else was doing. And I also wanted people to see that it was me that was doing it. And so putting my first name up there was really just telling people like I'm here for this. Like I'm
Yeah,
hungry, right? So
yeah.
yeah.
Nah, most definitely. Because I know with like change, like rebranding and like changing certain names too, it's like a worthwhile process too. Because some people they only prefer like the name that they knew you before. Like imagine like if they know Bennett like for like a while and all that, and then you switch to a new name after like relearning and reintroducing yourself to like with that name for a while. Like sometimes too, like some people might get like tired of it. Others like they'll adapt to like very easily. Like hey, I'll call you Dawson. Like there's like no issue with that and all that. Like I don't know if you've had issues with people like noticing that too.
Maze and Bevy are the only people that still call me it. Like I said, they're stuck on Bennett. They won't change it. But realistically, with the homies, I feel like all of them call me Dawson. So it wasn't really too much of a transition in terms of people transitioning. In terms of like people that followed my work, it was pretty smooth. I feel.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Almost definitely. And with working with people like Ado and Mozzie and like animation and all that, like how did you manage to like tap in with them? And what was like working with them like? And what were some things that you learned from them that you took on within like your daily life, like in that sense?
With animation, when I was 15, I got my first job. It was McDonald's, like everybody. We literally made burgers together. That's how it started. And I remember I pulled up to like a mixtape drop for him one day, and I was like, "Let me do this with you. Like, let me help with this." And so it's just transformed into this like brother relationship kind of thing. I feel like I can be like the biggest, excuse my language, but bitch for him,
Yeah.
but he's also always there for me and stuff. And then with Maze, it was just like a person through a person through a person through a
Yeah.
person, and I just haven't stopped working with them. And I always hit them up, tell them, I love you, keep working, keep doing your thing. So
Most definitely. Like one thing that I could say about like Mozzie and with animation and all that, like they're always consistent in like whatever they have to do like, and all that. Like I know Mozzie, like he had to take like a break for a bit, like after like what happened. But I've seen him like recollecting like his stuff back up, getting back on foot, working on all these projects because like he was doing like movie scenes for a bit. He had like very like big like music videos for a bit too. I worked with him like on the video stuff too. Like he's always consistent on like what he's doing to seeing him like now getting back on his feet and like going for the best, like that's a great thing too. Animation as well too, like he's always like dropping music every other time. Like his whole like musical change, like it was like so crazy as well too, from
mhm.
like the whole like Hobson like rapidy rapper type thing to this whole like emo like SoundCloud type wave and all that. That was like so crazy right there, like seeing him like go to like First Class Fest and like social outcast and all that, like that was crazy too.
if you like what you see, like the change, you're
Yeah.
gonna be blown away in like a couple months. This guy's got the most beautiful shit sitting on the shelf right now, and honestly, like they both have just taught me what hard work and dedication is for real. So
Yeah.
being able to work with them is honestly one of the biggest pleasures in my life.
Most definitely. And in terms of like, music and like concert photography, I know that he talked about like doing street photography for a bit, going to Toronto, going to all these other events too. But and like, we've dabbled in on like the whole like animation, 808 Mazze type stuff. But how did you get into like the realms of like music and concert photography, and what made you decide on wanting to follow that route from like now on?
Um, I started by shooting animation shows. That was like the first step into it, in terms of like being at a concert with a camera. I've always just loved music, and so being able to meld like my passion and something that I love was super easy once you have those connections. In terms of like a decision of I want to do this for the rest of my life, um, it didn't take any decisions really. It just happened over time, and I kind of just kept working and trying to motivate myself to do it. And I bugged everybody for photo passes and everything like that. And it just builds over time. And so,
And you gain more connections, you like meet other photographers and all that, because I know like you've tapped in with like a lot of other people too. You're now like doing like a lot of like stuff coming up that we'll discuss later. But like how was it like even going to these concerts and like being in that photo pit and like interacting with like other photographers and all that?
the first big show I did was Saba, which was like massive for me because I've always loved his music. But the first one it's a lot of anxiety. I was like sweating the entire time, just like trying not to mess up. And I was
Yeah.
like, I gotta get good photos out of this. And then I just realized, like, as the kind of the show went
Yeah.
on, I was like, this is where I belong. Like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna outshoot everybody here. I'm gonna do what I need to do, and then it's gonna
Yeah.
be over. But
Yeah. Yeah, no, one thing I noticed too, like especially with that Sabbath show, there was like this other guy that was doing photos with you too. I think one of his photos got reposted by like another thing too. Like I don't know if you've noticed that.
I don't think I did. No,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
I think I will definitely post that link to for a bit for people that want to tap in. But nah, like I know like that one guy that did the photo like at the show like along with you. He actually managed to do some shows at like Rolling Loud and all that. And like I managed to meet him like maybe like I think some years back. We worked like with the same like publication and all that. And it's interesting to see like how people like are growing like in that sense too. Like with their photos, everything going on and all that. So
I
yeah, man.
love to see people succeeding like that, especially in those moments where it's like you have this opportunity, make something of it, right? Like,
Yeah.
try, do something. And so, seeing people succeed in this city just brings me nothing but happiness,
Yeah.
honestly.
And what was like that impact like for you, and like even going to these events and shooting and having like those whole like reposts from like other artists and like people like tapping in to follow you and all that. Have you noticed like did you ever gain like any like recognition in a way from like all these events?
Yeah, definitely. The Kenny Mason show, Kenny himself reposted the photos, which was like a really big thing for me personally because I love his music and I love him. But there was a lot of numbers that came with that. I think my following got boosted a little. The
Oh,
likes on
true.
the post got boosted a lot. But um, the recognition really isn't something that I try to focus on too much, especially when it comes to like Instagram numbers and stuff like that. I don't really care about it. I try not to care about it. I think meeting people and hearing like how they think about the work and stuff like that, that's the big part. So meeting, or I guess talking to Redveil's manager and Redveil himself after the show and seeing like what they thought about it, super dope. Amazing people, right? Um, Denzel Curry liked the post of Redveil too, and that was just like it's a moment for me personally, right?
Yeah.
Where it's just like that is
It's like a
something that I'm
full
gonna cherish
yeah,
for
it's like a
forever.
yeah, it's like a full like circle like moment in that sense too.
Exactly.
Just yeah, nah. Because I know like with certain promoters too, like they'll usually tend to like shut down like other people that want to get in unless you follow within their certain standards. You work for a publication, all that type of stuff. But you managed to go for the source, and you didn't have to do all that hassling and all that. Like would you ever like work for a publication like to appease to the like promoters, or would you only go within your own route, like tapping in with the managers and all that?
I think there's a lot of positives to both. I do work for a publication right now. They're a little bit bigger. Their name is Canadian Beats.
Ah, true.
Super blessed to be able to work with them because they've brought me so many opportunities, and there's a lot of things coming within the
Yeah,
next like three
true,
months.
true.
Um, but I think there's something like really beautiful about just creatives talking to each other.
Yeah.
If you can make it happen by just talking to the artists, the managers, and stuff like that,
Yeah.
that's the best way to do it, in my opinion, because publications are kind of like the middleman and it kind of takes away from the experience a little
Yeah.
bit sometimes. But being able to see those people, talk to them, be in the green rooms with
Yeah.
them, be assigned to them,
Yeah.
have just like moments with them it's something that I really look forward to in those occasions.
No, most definitely. Because I know with some people too, like you only have to do like the first 3 songs and then you're out and all that. Like, and most people have to go like to the back of the venue to like outside or you're in the side set, so you're not really doing like anything this much too. But with you, you're going like there's like no limit for you. You're going to all these other areas, like getting it in like the best ways possible, and then you're interacting at the end too, so you didn't really have to like worry in that sense too.
There's it kind of flips. Even if you shoot for an artist, sometimes they'll only give you 3 songs,
Not true.
right? But um it's nice just kind of having that connection between them
Yeah.
because it always opens up more doors. Like I shot for Redveil at the Denzel show, and I'm gonna shoot for him again in April when he comes here. And so that's kind of like an advantage of it, right? Is
Yeah.
if it was with the publication, I might not have a chance to do that. But because they know me, they know my face, they know the work, it was a lot easier. I just DM'd the manager. I was like,
Yeah.
hey man, can I please have this?
Yeah, no, most definitely, man. Nah, like it's kind of crazy too, because like especially with publications too, like for photographers, like they're either supposed to like write and do the photos, or they need a like another writer with them. Would you prefer doing the whole writing and photos too, or would you get someone to write for you, like in that situation, if possible?
I do write for myself right now. I'm not a huge fan of it, to be honest. I think that the photos speak for themselves. I think the work is really like what I try to focus on the most. When it comes to like writing for photos, sometimes it can take away from it because if you really want to read those articles and feel like what it felt like in that venue kind of thing, the photos are the best way to do that
Yeah.
by far. That's where the energy is and everything like that. And me sitting down on a Microsoft Word document for 30 minutes isn't going to change that. Like,
And then like editing later on, like Grammarly, and then sending it to like the editor in chief, and then like having to find out like, hey, is it good? Is it bad?
yeah,
Yeah.
it can be a little draining,
Yeah.
but it's a part of the process.
Yeah, no, exactly, man. And from picking up that camera to until now, like getting into like all these like other areas and all that type of stuff too. Did you feel that you've grown as creative and that you came like a long way in that sense?
Massively. I've been shooting for 6 years, and it wasn't until 2022 that I felt like I was finally able to do what I wanted. Photography is very much a muscle, and you have to exercise it. You have to exercise your brain. You have to, consistently do it, or else you're not going to get better.
Yeah.
It took me 5 years to get to the point where I went, okay, like I'm cool now, guys. I know how to do this. But I feel like I'm finally in a space where if I have an idea, I can execute it, and I feel like my ideas are worth something finally, which is big.
Yeah, no, most definitely. And getting into the whole like client talk for a bit too. So animation and Mazze, they're like your only clients right now, right?
Not really. Thanks so much is on and off. I've worked with him on a couple of things. He's doing really well in like a really short span of time, and he's also super nice dude. I've shot with him twice now. The second time I shot with him, we just sat in his car and listened to this as an album for like a couple minutes. And honestly, animation isn't really a client to me, not too much. He's just my brother.
Yeah.
Like it's working with him is just what we do. That's how
Yeah.
our relationship is.
Exactly.
In terms of finding new clients, I always try to stay on the lookout. I want to spread my work as much as possible, and I know that the best way to do that is by doing work for people. And it can be tough, especially in this city. It can be like really tough finding new people who are willing to like trust you with the vision. So I'm very blessed to, have made those connections and keep them and keep working with them. But I'm always looking for new stuff too.
Yeah, no, most definitely. And like for some people too, like they have to find a specific type of client, or like they're looking for like whatever client like fits like best for them too. Like for you, like what do you look for like in a client in that sense?
I'm pretty open to most things. There's not really like a specific person that I look for. The only real difference is if I consider it work, because when I work with animation, I don't consider it work or Mazze. It really just feels like what I'm supposed to do in this life. So I guess the only thing really is that animation gets photos for free. Don't tell anybody that. And everybody else kind of has to submit to the bank account. But yeah.
Most definitely. And like when dealing with clients too, have you ever had like any like bad experiences, or like experiences that that could have gone like a little bit like differently like in that sense too, or
Of course, yeah, everybody does. Working with restaurants specifically is pretty tough. Meeting expectations with them. A lot of them have like expectations that they see at other places, and there's like $1,000 productions behind them, and so that's kind of difficult. But at the same time, I'm always a person that's like down to make it work. Just do everything I can. I always want my clients to be happy and successful with what they do. So if I can do anything to make it work, then I try my best to.
definitely. And like saving up this question to like even further up with the whole client talk. So I've actually spoke with Bavaro Beats, a guy that I had on the podcast a while back too, about like like the idea of like working for free too. And like this is like a situation where this videographer, like I don't know if you're big on like Toronto videographers by any chance.
A little bit, a little bit.
So there's this guy named David Del Rosario who posted on Instagram a while back saying, like his issues with like people like expecting work for free, like Toronto rappers, all that type of stuff too, like, free music videos, editing and all that. And this came after the situation where K Money, like a well-known rapper, like posted photos saying, "Hey fam, like I need some videos for the free skis and all that type of stuff and all that." And like he had like David had thoughts about quitting about that because of situations like that where
I think I
he,
saw that. Yeah.
yeah,
Um, I don't mind working for free. The big thing is just like, what are you gonna do for me, right? Because if I'm gonna spend like my time and money to make something for you, and I make stuff to make stuff,
yeah,
right? Like that's why we do it. Um, I guess yeah, it's really just like, what do you get out of that situation? And there's times where it's acceptable, and there's times where it's not. Toronto specifically, especially in the music scene, there's a lot of people that will always expect free shit, and I have trouble giving it out sometimes just because it's hard to believe in somebody that you don't know when you're working with the first time. So yeah, that's my thoughts on it.
yeah.
Honestly, it's okay, but it's rare.
But would you work like with a budget like in that sense too? Like let's say like, hey, I only have a budget like for this amount. Would you be able to do some magic on that? Like in that sense too? Like let's say
Yeah,
if we're shooting like if we have like a music video for like $1,000 and all that, and we have to pay certain people for some stuff, like for the location we pay this amount, for the video vixens and the other people in the background we pay for this amount, the catering, the vehicles, and then for the editor and for the videographer and all that, like would you be open like in that sense too to figuring out like on like what's needed like with the money and everything like that?
absolutely. Especially when it comes to small artists who are still trying to make it. I always tell them that whatever you pay me, there's like a good chance that it's just gonna get reinvested into what we're making because I do these things so that I can make them, right?
Yeah.
Um, so if obviously people have got bills to pay and stuff like that, so I always try to be open to figuring stuff out. But a lot of the time we reinvest like the budget that we get. So if we're making $1,000 on a video or something like that, me and the homies are probably taking home 200 realistically. Like
Yeah.
we'll put time into the location, we'll scout, we'll find good things, props, if we need a smoke machine for the day, if there's lights that we don't have,
Yeah.
anything like that, we try to make the most out of the opportunity.
Yeah, exactly. And just like adding into like what we have right now. So for people that want to know, so Dawson would actually be headlining an actual event, like a photo gallery event on like February 26th, hosted by Social Outcasts at this location on Queen Street West. We'll post like the link once it's dropped. But you're headlining this like photo gallery event called Isolation Volume One in Toronto. So do you want to explain more on that?
Absolutely, yeah. I am the headliner for the event, but there are four other beautiful, wonderful, amazing photographers that are going to be there too that are also posting work. T.Cam, Kiga with Cole, Detrimental Visions, and Suni. Every single one of them are just blow me away, motivate me, just amazing people. Um, in terms of my part in the gallery, it's something that I've wanted to do for a really long time. I had my first gallery around the same time last year, but this one feels a lot different because I'm the headliner. I tried to keep the list of people like really limited because I didn't want to take away too much from what we were doing. The photos that I chose and selected really say a lot about me as a person, the art I make, and stuff like that. And this has been in my head for like 5 months now or something. So I'm really excited to finally give it to the people, and I just hope people enjoy it, honestly.
Nah, most definitely. So, like, is it actually like a ticketed event, or like would people like just tap in and like check it out for a bit?
There is tickets to the event. We do have a max capacity of 250, so
True.
please buy them soon. I don't want anyone to miss out. But yeah.
Nah, most definitely, man. Like, I'll definitely tap that in and like show it to the link once released and all that. So, getting back onto other subjects since we still have like some time for a bit, to speak more on the whole like client work with like Toronto artists and all that. There's a videographer by the name of Macadelic actually. So, in a situation, he actually interviewed an artist by the name of like Doughboy DQ, and I think I think months after like the interview or like weeks after the interview, there was a situation on like that he got like robbed of for his stuff, because I think people like around like a certain area didn't like the interview that he had with him. Like, were you like in some situations like that? Are you like ever like in fear, or are you ever like paranoid or afraid, like dealing with certain clients and working in situations like that where you have to pick a side in that sense?
Not really, no. Personally, with me, I try not to involve myself in drama or beef or anything like that. I try to send positive energy to everybody that I see. Um, I've had a couple of situations where people have tried to run me for my camera in Toronto
Yeah,
specifically, especially when you're shooting street
yeah.
at night. Gets a little tricky. In terms of my clients, I think I've been pretty blessed of just working with like positive, good people. And I think if you really spread positive energy out there, it'll find a way back to you.
Almost definitely. Like I know, like in some situations too, like working with certain people too. It kind of depends on like certain situations too, like on like affiliation. Like, hey, if you're my guy, you're my guy. If you're rocking with them, like I don't know what the trust is and all that. So it's kind of like more so like finding people like within like a unique energy, as you said, like positive energy that are not like within like that like lifestyle to kind of like be in like situations like that.
Yeah, I've never really been somebody that looks out for like violence or anything like that, right?
True.
I think I'm just really lucky to have surrounded myself with those people that have more to do in life than that, realistically. So
Most definitely. There was also a situation too, like in the midst of photography. I think this was 2 years ago. I think there was this a guy on TikTok where he had like a photo pass, and like I think like he was going to Kanye's events and all that. So he made like a fake photo pass to shoot like the Donda like events. I think at the arena like in Atlanta and all that. Like I don't know if you saw like the TikTok
I
by any
didn't know, but that sounds hype.
Yo, but like in some situations like that where you could like make a fake, photo pass and all that, like sneak in, like take photos. Like, do you ever feel like that's like a lot of risk? Like even being in like situations like that.
I think there is a good amount of risk for it because I know venues will purge people for that and like ban them, and then you're banned from that venue for life. At the same time, though, I have like a sense of respect for it because that guy chose to, put it on the line and try and do that because he really wanted to, and that's something that I try to do myself, not necessarily like forge photo passes,
Yeah,
but um,
like
it takes a lot to put yourself on the line like that and
yeah.
walk out in there. But if he did it, right?
Yeah, most definitely. Because I know in some situations too, with like some like concert photographers, like they're really against people doing stuff like that, that not respecting the rules and like going like on their own way and all that, following their own like individual route and all that. Do you ever feel like in some situations too, like the old like concert photography rules or like the old pit rules, like kind of have like a detrimental effect on the idea of creativity?
Yeah, a little bit. They're obviously there for a reason. A lot of it's health and safety with the venues, especially making sure that people don't go on stage or anything like that. The pit is always rambunctious and like way too short for like anyone to really take their time and like think about what they want to do. But at the same time, I think it really separates us. There's a lot of people that want to be concert photographers, and there's a lot of people that have dedicated themselves to it. And I think it's two very different things. And so those people are in the pit for a reason. Like they worked to get here, they made the connections they needed to make, but um, sometimes you just gotta risk it, man.
Yeah, because like nowadays too, like I think like they're even condensing the rules for creativity to not be allowed. Like I know, there's like this tweet by Under Oath, like their management team, like is looking for like actual people, like fans to shoot the concert instead of like actual like concert photographers, from what people might have assumed and all that. Even though it's like an experience where they have their own tour photographer, and then they give like I think like a point and shoot up for a bit too with like not I think it's like I think with like some film that like they'll just give to like the manager and all that. So I don't know like how you would like react to like situations like that. Where like venues and like management teams and like artists are trying to do this for their fans, but like they won't give that opportunity to a concert photographer in that sense.
It's a win-lose situation. Realistically, I'm sure that one of those fans has dreams of being a concert photographer and needs to get a foot in the door somewhere, and
Yeah.
that could be it realistically. At the same time, like I spend months planning these like
Yeah.
ahead of time. So, realistically, if you're hungry enough and you want to do that, that's dope. And if the managers decide that that's a good decision for them, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I do think people underestimate us a little bit just because of how much work these things really are. You take
Yeah.
2,000 photos in a night and you repost everything, like 10 final edits by the next day is it's a lot. But realistically, you'll find the people that you rock with and they'll find you. So
Most definitely. And like in some situations too, sorry, like I'm just like losing my track of thought. Like I know like St. John, the artist, he had a show like 2 years back where he didn't even want like actual like concert photographers at all, like just like certain fans to come with their phone and like record. Like I don't know if you know that situation as well.
I haven't heard of that one. I've heard of a couple of them. First Class Fest was the same. You guys were anyone that came could have had DSLR, point and shoot, anything like that. The thing that I noticed with that is that there's a lot of overload the next day. So like the posts go crazy. Like there's every fan will have something to post kind of, and it kind of drowns out our work a little bit because it makes it a little bit harder to find those people's attention when you need it. But realistically, everyone's there to have a good time. Like that's all it is.
Yeah, no, most definitely. And getting on to some of these like last questions for bit two, how do you feel about the Toronto GTA creative scene? Like at the moment, do you feel like there should be some changes on like how the scene should go to, or do you feel like it's fine the way it is?
I feel like it used to be really good. Like it used to be amazing back in like 2016 to 2019. I think now, specifically for photography, it's pretty bad.
Yeah,
um, but I think there's some people that are looking to change it, myself included. Drake and Anditch has done like an amazing job of breaking that barrier between the top and the bottom, where he has I can't even remember what his events are called, but he hosts his own stuff and he keeps it open and people can ask him questions. He talks to them, he stays there, he puts up work and everything like that, and he makes an experience out of it. But outside of him, I don't really see anyone kind of making that move for the city right now, which is kind of what I'm trying to change a little bit. But
yeah.
yeah,
Nah, most definitely because I know with like a lot of like photographers too, like that used to do photography, like now they're managing artists. Now they're in the in the music industry in some way, shape, or form. Now they're like in New York or LA, like working with some artists too. So now it's like left with the other people like around in that city on like what they're gonna do. So nowadays it's like finding like a leader and someone that's not with the whole like gatekeeping type stuff. So
yeah,
it's do you feel like gatekeeping has ruined Toronto photography like in that sense?
a little bit. I feel like we all need to succeed. Like I feel like there doesn't just have to be one of us that does well. There's enough space for everybody in this community to get some love and everything like that. But gatekeeping for sure closed some doors on some people. It's happened to me before. I've seen it happen to other people. Um, in my perspective, I just kind of want everyone to do well. Like when I have an extra ticket to a show or something like that, I bring another photographer. If I, have extra time on my hands, I'll plan a photo walk for like 20 people in the city to find some new spots. If I have a couple extra months around, I'll plan a gallery with 4 other people, right? So
Ah, most definitely, man. And what would be like some good advice for people that want to be like in your footsteps, or like any creative that you would give like any advice for like on how to succeed or how to like start off?
never stop working. Work constantly, take photos constantly, exercise with your camera in your hands. Don't do anything except photography. Dedication is like literally everything. And it's the only reason that I'm here because I just didn't stop working. People tried to tell me time and again, like, this isn't going to work. You're not going to do this. You can't shoot Denzel Curry, bro. That's crazy. Like, what are you talking about? And so the day that I shot Denzel Curry, I texted like 4 people and I was like, hey, man, guess what? Excuse my language again, but fuck you.
Yeah, man, no, exactly. And always shoot raw, because I think if you do shoot in JPEG, kind of ruins the distillation of photography. Like when you're shooting raw, like that's always like your
It's
aspect.
everything. Yeah,
Yeah.
it captures everything. Honestly, I used to shoot only JPEG, And then once I really like dived into it, I was like, oh, that was such a mistake.
Because like raw is like that whole like creative factor too. With JPEG, it's like, oh shit, like now we have to kind of make it look lit.
The issue is that there's just not enough data in one of them. Like JPEG, it doesn't pick up enough,
Yeah.
but RAW, you just have so much more like range in it. So
Yeah, exactly.
that helps.
And no regrets or anything like that, or do you have any regrets?
Oh man, I'm about to headline a gallery. I got Denzel Curry, Kenny Mason, Saba, all of that behind me. I got a lot more homies in front of me. I got this project with animation. I wouldn't change a single thing, man.
Nah, exactly, man. And aside from the gallery, like, do you have anything else going on, or like, that's it?
Animation's making an album right now. I have constructed the entire like visuals for it, and it is probably what I'm most proud of. And then I do have something for 2024, but I'm not saying anything yet.
All right. I mean, we're in 2023 right now, so I think we have to start 2023 off right, you know, and right, we're doing it right now with this podcast, you know, the 25th episode. So it's a good milestone for a bit, you know. So, and do you have any closing remarks you'd like to say?
Just spread positivity, spread love. As long as you have love in your heart, you'll be successful. That's honestly it.
Most definitely. And for people like in the area, do you want them to call you Dawson or just Dawson.ISO?
Either one, man. I'm just here for the people now.
True,
Whatever you
true.
guys want.
Nah, most definitely. Like, do you want to like tap in your socials and all that for people like to follow you and all that?
Go straight to Instagram, Dawson.ISO. That's it. Nothing else. No TikTok, no Twitter, Instagram.
Definitely check that out. And Dawson, you know, thank you for coming by to TLOY, you know, for sharing your story, sharing everything and sharing everything else as well too with your content, your story, you know, even with this whole gallery thing too. We'll have people tap in with the link, you know, to purchase tickets or to check out the event like once it's released and all that. Definitely like get your tickets soon. Also, once this is released, you could access this on all like social platforms, you know, on YouTube, on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, on Buzzsprout. So unfortunately, we don't have Sounder anymore because the hosting platform for Sounder came to an end. But you could definitely check it out like on all other platforms too, as mentioned. And you know, you could definitely tap in with the reels and everything else too for the podcast. And you know, this is Josh, also known as Yashu, with Dawson, also known as Dawson.ISO, on TLOY Talks, signing off.